Hello, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And learning board games.
Well, yeah, okay.
If you're new to our channel, hit that subscribe button and follow along our journey. Today we wanted to talk about common mistakes you can make when teaching games.
5 specifically.
5.
5!
Now we've made a lot of mistakes trying to teach games to folks, but we've learned quite a lot, so we thought we'd share some of our knowledge.
Yeah, it's definitely a skill that we are happy that we're learning, and it's one of those things that surprisingly helps you in other areas.
That's very true. And like us, you're likely to make mistakes. We're still likely to make many mistakes, but we grow from them and we get better.
But before we get started, if you have any common mistakes that you already know about, drop them down in the comments and let us know.
And we'll see if they match.
Ooh.
Number-
Oh! Number 1.
Well, one of the most common mistakes you can make, and I'm definitely covered for this, is explaining the game before you've set it up, before there's even any visuals, because you get so excited.
Yep. Yeah. You can be like reading through the rule book, trying to explain it to somebody, and then if you're like me, I just want to look at it and be like, oh, okay, now I can make those connections, and it's easier for me to learn that way.
I've definitely done this a couple of times where we're in the car and I'm like, Tyler, you have to learn this game. And I start explaining all the intricate details and it just goes above anybody's head, honestly. That's really hard to visualize and get all the rules and get it all together.
To be totally honest, sometimes when that happens, I kind of just zone out. Because I just don't know what it looks like. Especially if it's a game I've never heard of or a game I'm unfamiliar with.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So number 2 is forget and explain the goal or how you win the game. Oftentimes you'll dive into the mechanics and say how things do what, but you don't really explain how it relates to the theme of the game potentially, or what the victory condition is, or how you win.
Yeah, and it can be as simple as like using multiple different areas on the board to score a bunch of points, or to like set up for later rounds to really help you establish an engine type system that wins you the game. But if you're not taking time to appreciate that or explain it and reiterate it to the folks that you're trying to teach the game to, then they kind of just get lost in translation and they're like, hey, why do I have to do this? I get it. I'm doing it. But what's the purpose?
Yeah. I'm guilty for this when there's exciting mechanics that I want to tell people about. And I just focus on those mechanics and I'm like, what are we even doing here? Like, what is happening?
Why is this board red? Moving on to number 3. This one is playing for others. Kind of self-explanatory, but it's basically you explain the game as best as you could, you're starting to play it, and then somebody has a question about something or they're wondering what they should do. And instead of taking time to be like, maybe these are the things that you could think about doing, and this is maybe what I would recommend you do, you're like, oh, it's obvious. Like, just take this move, and it'll be the best move for you. So you kind of end up taking away from their experience because you're telling them what to do instead of guiding them through how to play the game properly.
It's one of those things where it's very different to give a bunch of options, but then to say, you have to do this and you have to do this. And although you may have good intentions and you want them to experience a fun game, or maybe they're making a lot of mistakes and you want to correct them, let them learn, because at some point you learned as well.
And if you do a good job, they'll just come back and be like, I want to play this game again because I know what I want to do this time.
And how I can improve.
Yeah.
So number 4, using way too much board game jargon. Now, whether it's a new player or a seasoned board game player as well, you can't assume that everybody knows all the mechanics and all the common terms. You can get into a game and start listing off that it's a set collection, card drafting, worker placement, with a victory point conditions depending on this and this, and then you can keep going. But as soon as a person doesn't connect one of those words to meaning, they just lose track right there, and they focus on that one specific thing and then have maybe half the things that they do know completely go out the window because they don't understand a simple mechanic that you just didn't take the time to explain. This is one of those things that I think everyone can improve a little bit more, is we do have a lot of really common terms that we all understand as people who play board games quite a lot. But to be more inclusive and accessible, we got to make sure we explain what drafting is, what worker placement is. And there's a lot of really cool ways to do it.
Yeah, well, and like even to that point, like it could be as simple as going through it a bit slower, and then even just adjusting to somebody's cues. Like there are definitely times where if I'm confused about some like explanation in a rule book, I'll be like, I'm not sure about that. But other times I feel uncomfortable about saying anything, and that's when I think it's really important for both people to get out of their comfort zone and either ask a question or slow down and be like, okay, sorry, you look a little confused. What's up?
And it's important, it's better to be more thorough than less thorough, because if 4 out of the 5 people get it and the other person just feels guilty and doesn't want to speak up, it's better to be thorough so everybody has a good time rather than just the 4 people.
Yeah, you want to bring more people into the hobby. Last but not least, I think this was like an overarching number 5.
Yeah.
And that's not accounting for people's different learning styles. And we are basically opposites when it comes to this. Yeah.
But it works out quite well.
It does, yeah. So Ilya is a book reader.
Yes,
so he'll just
I need to read, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm set the game up, explain it as you go, and I can just like listen and visualize. So it goes hand in hand because he can just read the book while I'm listening. But that's not always the case. Like if Ilya is playing with somebody that is also a book reader, how do we do that?
Yeah.
I
always feel super rude when people are teaching games to me, because I'm not an auditory learner whatsoever. And it's funny because board games help me realize that. So I wish I played board games more actively before school and university, because I feel like I would have done quite better knowing that I'm not an auditory learner. But I always feel really rude saying, can I just see the rule book? And they're like trying to explain to me over and over. I'm like, I can't. It's just not. It takes a lot of focus for me to capture the information auditory.
Yep.
But let people see the rule book. Let them play around with components. A lot of people are tactile learners. Go through it, but make sure you account for everybody as you go.
Yeah, ask questions. Figure out like what's best for everybody as you go too. It's like teaching a board game shouldn't be complex, but sometimes it can be.
And some people want to know beforehand, so send them a rule book, let them read the night before if you know what you're playing. There's lots of different ways to
or
help
how to
those folks out.
play, or things like that. Yeah, use as many resources as possible and make it easier for yourself and for the people you're playing with, because we want everybody to love board games.
Board games.
And we want everybody to play board games.
Board games.
Especially with us.
Us. Well, that's it.
Yeah. Real quick video this week. We just wanted to share our 5 common mistakes that we have while teaching games. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, make sure you give that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and maybe even that bell notification to get more notifications on when we release videos.
Exactly. And tell us in the comments below some of the common mistakes that you've made or you've seen made, and maybe how to remedy them, and what are some tools to spin it to the positive and make it easier for this hobby to be more inclusive and accessible.
Love ya. See ya.
Bye.